My brain says this, try this.
The St. Louis Cardinals don't know what an infield fly is, and I guarantee they know what an infield fly is.
And he struggled mightily, and I think that becomes an issue because now he's so criticized.
Talking
Overfluff.
over fluff. Too much fluff.
I think so.
Well, we're going to talk about it. Welcome, everybody, to the Hitting Zone podcast. That's where we take tough subjects and we crush them. And if you like what we're doing, please go out and hit that follow button on our Instagram page, on our Twitter, X, on TikTok. It's where I'm doing a lot of my business lately is on TikTok. I kind of forgot about my Instagrams, but Instagram is still working for me. The Instagram is _MTS Performance, Hitting Zone STL for our X. That's capital H, Z, and then STL. And TikTok is just the Hitting Zone STL. That's where you can find me if you get into that search. Been doing a lot of stuff there. Been going live a lot lately since we got the high school kids in and we got the middle school kids coming through there. We've been going live a lot so you can kind of see what we're doing, kind of how we coach kids up, how we communicate with team settings. If you're a coach looking for opportunities, it's a great way to kind of see what we're doing out there. Game 7 baseball, big supporter of Youth Baseball Midwest and the Hitting Zone. They still have tournaments that are open. They are filling up relatively quickly, so make sure that you get in there, especially at the younger age groups. I've noticed that it's been filling up quick. Prime Sports Midwest, 3 locations. One of those still closed. Obviously, out here in St. Charles County, they're still dealing with that stuff over there in St. Peters. So let's make sure we support them with their orders and order your gear online. You can obviously go into Chesterfield and Fenton. Chesterfield one's out in the mall, so it's not too far from St. Charles County, about 15 minutes. Youth Baseball YBM Club, is live. It is exclusive content. You can see player rankings, breakdowns, player spotlights, early access to other content that we've done. I've done a few of that with Brian and some of the other guys. So make sure that you go out there at the YBM Club and make sure you join now with the Legacy member pricing. They've extended that, and you got to visit Youth Baseball Midwest and go out there and get that Legacy member pricing, which is exclusive. So anyways, I am happy to bring on Josh. I think this is probably our 3rd or maybe 4th time bringing you on. You've come in and you've done a camp with us. It's been a great relationship. Obviously, it's a what we call this a long distance relationship, if you will. But it started a few years ago after I followed one of your videos of you doing some PVC drills. It's led to you coming up doing a camp with us, and also which was a successful camp. I would like to add, and then getting on the podcast here. And Josh, I want you to kind of reintroduce yourself because we've got new subscribers and members. So I'd like for you to just kind of reintroduce yourself, and then how we can follow you.
Awesome, man. Well, my name is Josh Cathcart. It's Hitting Done Right online with Instagram, which is my biggest platform, followed by YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. Actually hit a Facebook milestone a couple weeks ago. Got 100,000 followers on Facebook in just under 2.5 years. So that was pretty awesome. Yeah, man, I just cleared 9 million views on videos this month, or last month, I guess, for the last 28 days. I have online services, analysis for swings, customized practice plans. There's a couple programs already built in for common hitting flaws. There's one for the dragging back elbow or racing back elbow that's really common amongst young players. I have a youth hitting program that's designed for young coaches that may have youth teams, and also a high school program for high school head coaches or hitting coaches that may want some guidance or an outline on what I used when I was a varsity assistant and hitting coach years ago. Won a state title using that program. Not that it was just because of that hitting program, but we could put the ball around the yard a little bit. So, yeah, man, this is coming up on year 26 as a coach. I've done all levels except college and pro. I've done the young youths. I've done high school. I've done national level travel for 16 and 18U. And then the personal training in person and online. So, yeah, man, happy to be back. I'm excited about this topic that we got going on today. Just development and who's responsible, and kind of what's that look like?
Yeah, man. So I want to touch base real quick on something that you said in the introduction there to kind of our fans out there, a little more detailed. And you use the word programming often in your description of what you do, and that has been the conversations that we've had on the development side is the programming side of thing, not just the one-on-one instruction where you go in for 30 minutes, you talk to a lady or a gentleman going in there and get your reps and it's over with. This is real programming to develop athletes, and I think people need to understand that if you're paying for a 30-minute babysitting session, as Shane would like to call it, that's what the terms that he uses. That's not for us, and I think that's why we gel a lot is because our whole thing is trying to build a better brand of athletes. And I love that piece about you is that you're not just an instructor, because I'm not a firm believer of one-on-one instruction to the point of just walking in and going in and hitting. You have to have a plan. And if you do not have a plan, we're not developing athletes. And so that's the conversation that I wanted to talk about today was, who is responsible for that development? But before we get into that, before we started this show, you and I were having a conversation about a topic that I think is absolutely important. And if we talk about it for most of the show, I'm okay with this because it baffled me on what you said. And I was like, you know what, man, I can't believe that that's actually a real thing. And I want you to kind of bring this up in your terms and let it fly, man. I don't care because I feel the same way. I think it's crazy. So go ahead and kind of express what you said earlier on the show.
So I was in the facility yesterday and working with a different player. The player that said this wasn't working with me. I heard it, from a cage over, and basically one of our instructors was asking a pitcher, what they did during the week, so he would have an idea of what the lesson needed to look like. Do we need a light day? Do we need a bullpen day? Do we need a field day? What are your needs? And he said, what does your coach tell you? And it just came up, and the guy was like, what's your coach? Like our instructor was like, hey, what's your coach's name? I know the guy's over at your high school. And he named the high school. And this high school baseball player who made the team had went through tryouts and has been practicing for 3 weeks and has played scrimmages already, did not know his high school baseball coach's last name. And when I heard it, it was like I had to really let it sink in. Did I hear him right? And then the instructor said, "Excuse me?" He said, "You don't know your coach's name?" And the kid again, he said, "No, sir." And that's astonishing to me. Not only from a respect as an adult and as a coach, but also as a young player in a high school program leading up to high school, 7th and 8th grade for sure, maybe even before that, knowing the program that you're going into, understanding who your competition is, understanding what brand of baseball the coach in that program runs, so you have some idea, and then just the overall community and the I call it the give a shit factor, right? Do you care enough to understand what you're getting into? And I remember growing up, and I remember, working with younger kids in the travel ball program, getting them ready for high school. One of the things was know your coaches. Go to the high school camps. Every single high school, at least here, we have big high schools where I'm from. It's 5A and 6A. You're talking 800 to 900 kids in a graduation class, campuses with, almost 3,000 kids. So big programs. Going to those camps for years leading up, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, going to the camps, getting to know the coaches, going to high school games and everything. And the fact that this kid didn't know the coach's name it was a shock to the system. And it was just like, how things have changed, and the mindset this kid, I don't know him. Like I said, he wasn't one of mine. But to me, that just screams, I'm not going to take any accountability for this. I'm expecting everybody to do this for me. It doesn't matter who they are. I'm just going to go. I'm going to do this, and all of this is going to line up. I'm going to take my personal lessons. I'm going to make the high school team. I'm going to go do what I do, and all this is just going to work out. And with no personal relationship, your high school coach, if it's a good program, if it's a good coach, and when I talk about high school, I think I come from a different world and mindset just of where I was raised and where I have grown up coaching. High school baseball is a big deal. Like people talk about Texas being a football state, and there are, but in my area and where I played high school baseball, where I coached high school baseball, and where I've done all my coaching for that age level, it's a big deal. And to not know your coach, just it's. I even said on my post, like, what are we doing? Like, how is that even possible?
Do you
So,
think because when you said that to me, my jaw dropped, right? Like I'm like, um, the state of baseball. We talk about this all the time on the show, like kind of just the state. Like I get that kids don't need to necessarily know the history of baseball to be a good player and stuff like that. And I just think like how truly or how much do you really want something? If you truly want something, you should know every single coach in your high school program, not just the varsity head coach's name, but everybody in that school, because you want to show that you have that school spirit. Because at the end of the day, youth baseball starts to change when you get into the high school level and becomes more of a team game. You end up bunting in high school baseball. You don't bunt in summer baseball. You know what I mean? And it's like the game changes because you get paid to win baseball games, right? So you have to be a team guy. I love that's where you're coming from. And I think some of that leads into the development process of what we want to talk about. And like how, to me, how in the world, just like you said, how in the world do you not know your high school coaches' names? What have you been doing while you're at practice and somebody else calls their names, or you look on the list of coaches, or what did you do in sixth, seventh, eighth grade, like you said? Being from a big school, we got big schools in our space that are competitive, and you have got to know that person, because if you don't know that there's no relationship being built, and why would that coach even want to play you? You're not even on his radar anymore. And it's just like, dude, what do you like? Prior to going to the coach or anything like that, why didn't his parents step up and say, hey, know your coach? Like, why didn't his summer ball
yeah,
say, know your coach? And going back to this development process on kind of who's responsible. Now, granted, you like accountability, right? Like, so whose job is it? It clearly can't be the individual private instructor's job. It should not be his job to tell that kid to find out who his coach is. The athlete has to have probably majority of that blame, but like, let's start there. Who's responsible for that kind of stuff? Like, who needs to make sure that kid knows his coach's name?
I think that at this level, I will say this was not a varsity player. It was a young kid. It was probably a freshman or sophomore. Um, so not that I'm trying to give him an out, but it wasn't like a varsity guy that's playing for the head coach. It was a younger kid. But I think that the parents, number one, the parents. There is turnover. Coaches do change, especially at the, lower levels. Guys move on, they get promoted, you bring in young new coaches. So the coaching staff may be a little different. Let's say that this kid went to a camp last year in eighth grade, and the sophomore coach's name was so and so, the JV coach was so and so, and then the varsity staff, was there. Well, between that year and this year, the sophomore and the JV coach could change. Okay, that's fine. But the day you go out to tryouts, like it was taught to us. And when I had younger players, those seventh and eighth grade players in travel ball playing 13 and 14, one of our biggest things was you walk out to a tryout, you walk out to a practice, you give to an event, the first thing you do is go up and introduce yourself to the coach before anything else. That's the first thing you do. And so I think that it's kind of the puppy mill feel for me sometimes with these young players and everything that they're doing. They're running around to all these showcases, they're running around to all these tryouts, they're team jumping, they're doing so that personal relationship that you spoke on just isn't there, and it doesn't even cross their mind. And so for me, with the young ones, I would say the parents, you got to do a little research. Hey, by the way, we have a new sophomore coach this year. Make sure you go introduce yourself to him at tryouts. Hey, I heard the JV coach got a promotion. There may be a new guy out there that we don't know. Make sure you go introduce yourself. But as the ball player at the high school level, and again, I realize that there's all levels of seriousness. There's freshmen and sophomore in high school that don't care about playing in college. They don't have dreams of being a big leaguer. They're there to be with their buddies. They're there because that's what other people are doing, whatever the case is. But as a young man, as a young, player, that just it was crazy that no introduction, no hey heads up, no hey I don't know who that is. Ask phone a friend, bro. Like look next to you. Hey, who's this coach? Like something. Like take a little bit of initiative to know who you're playing for or the program that you're in. And so the parents for the young guys, teach your kids how to be respectful. Teach your kids how to introduce themselves. Look somebody in the eye, shake their hand, give the first and last name, so that you do make an impression. Because I remember vividly, coming out and as a coach, let's say you got 50 kids that show up for tryouts. The 25 or 30 that walk up, shake your hand, those are the ones I'm looking at first. That kid that kind of snuck in the dugout, didn't say anything to anybody, kind of went through the motions, kind of sluggish through, warm ups and everything. That kid's not even on my radar.
Yeah, unnoticed. I was going to bring that piece up before we get into kind of the guts of this topic here. Is that if when you do this and you showcase yourself to your coach, you are on his mind. It's just like when you get in trouble, right? Like even at home, like if you get in trouble at home, like everything you do for the next 2 to 3 hours, you're being nitpicked on, right? And so like when you go out there and you introduce yourself, your coach is like, that's the kid that come up. I love that kid. Like I love that personality. And I always wonder, like, I think the game is, we have a lot more introverted people in today's communities, standard or not standard, but just in broad, we have a lot more introverted kids. And I think it's very difficult as an outgoing person to coach that kid because you're wanting them to be that guy that's not sneaking in the dugout because you want him to be noticed, and you kind of have to be loud. Not loud in the terms of like how I am, I speak loud, but just being in front and willing to make mistakes and not be that shy kid that wants everybody else to go first. Like these things, and I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if, the parents are okay with it because the generations change because we have so much tech. So it's easy, to sit here on your phone and play video games on your phone, Roblox here, then you go to your PlayStation, whatever. And it's like there's a lot of that going on. So I feel like you're correct. We don't know how to talk to kids anymore. So the parents need to help build that relationship and trust so that the kids can go do that. And I preach that at a super young age. You need to do whatever it takes to make eye contact. Like I make sure that at 9 years old, my 9U team gives every single coach fist bump. It doesn't matter. I don't even know if they care, if they know what that means right now. But at the end of the day, at some point by 11U, the culture will be that it's automatic. And then they have that respect because they know that that's what we're preaching.
Well, I think a lot of it, man. And I don't like to fall back on the crutch of, oh, society this, society that for most things. I think that a lot of times that gets used as a cop out. But I will say that the higher level parents are teaching the kids how to communicate and those skills, while there is a lot of parents that have fallen into, I'm going to let other people raise my kid and, drop them off. The parents don't even come up and talk to the coaches. They don't introduce themselves. So they're not setting an example of that. I think that technology Obviously, there studies have been done on how it affects young brains, and how they don't have the personal relationships with people. Um, they don't have the empathy. They don't have a way of, trying to understand different personalities or anything else. So, to a point, society has changed, and that puts kids kind of behind the eight ball, depending on what the home life is. Um, but with athletes, if you are going to truly be good, you have to take responsibility sooner rather than later on your development, who you are with, get to know your coaches. You know, we've talked about this before with me and you. Being able to change gears and be a chameleon for different types of kids. Well, that's our job as coaches. But my job as a coach is not to teach you how to do things out in society as a whole. That comes from the parents. I can teach you, work ethic. I can help you, with tricks of the trade, how to be seen at showcases. What's a good thing to do? Walk up and introduce yourself to the coach. But at the end of the day, it's got to be something daily at home. Hey, you're a young man. You're going to walk up, you're going to shake hands, you're going to make eye contact with men, you know, um, those types of things. You're going to, yes, sir. You're going to, no, sir. You're going to, yes, ma'am. So it's a weird thing, man. And I think that a lot of kids, and like I said, parents are just waiting for somebody else to tell them what to do and to guide them. And so that accountability element is often lost.
Yeah,
Um,
I like what you said there with and to be frank, I like the communication there on not using it as a crutch, because often we get, my kid has ADD or ADHD, and it's something that parents look at and say that's why my kid doesn't pay attention. And it's like, well, I have that. I've been diagnosed with that, and I don't never use it for a crutch in anything that I do. And for me, what I did is, if I love something, truly love something, and with having that, it's over the top. Like, I'm in love with I'm so invested, right? So like with football and baseball, I loved it. But other sports, I was all over the place because I didn't care enough. I didn't love it enough, and that's, you're oversensitive to that with the ADHDs kind of stuff. And so I don't like to use that as a factor of not paying attention. I know how to deal with that kid, but the kid doesn't love it enough, right? And then that's okay. But we need to identify like where we should be with that kid, or what does he need to do anyways, going back to that, just not using crutches. I like that. And maybe I'll rethink how because the kid is introverted, I'll need to rephrase that, because I like the thought process of not using it as a crutch. And instead, let's coach up the parent and say, hey, these things need to happen because this is what baseball needs. Not in a way of you need to be a better parent or something ridiculous like that, because you can't tell
yeah.
people how to parent. And it's just, it has to come down to, you need to do this so that he could be more marketable in the platform of baseball, if this is truly what you want long term. I
I
like
don't
that.
know. I don't know this for a fact because I'm not out in the other sports mainly, but watching people talk about it, I feel like there are more parents that have their kids involved with baseball and softball that never played baseball or softball than other sports. Like when I go to my daughter's soccer game, I feel like every parent on the sideline knows what's going on. You know, when I talk to parents that have multi sport kids, basketball and football in particular here, I feel like they speak about that in a more educated way. The process, the etiquette, the sportsmanship, what's okay and what's not. And I feel like baseball parents just don't know. Like I'll talk to parents about, hey, have you thought about doing this? Have you done this? Have you had this conversation with your coach? And more often than not, I get this blank look, and it's like, no, I never thought about it. And for me, some of those things are the very very basics. Like if you have a pitching coach, do you talk to your head coach about what you're doing in your lessons? Like that's a no-brainer for me. Oh, you just threw 60 pitches on a Sunday. It's okay for you to go to your lesson and then throw another 40 pitch bullpen on Monday? No, that's not okay. That's not how this works. And that's like common sense stuff for me. Like, hey, coach, you walk into your lesson and be like, hey, man, I just threw 60 pitches yesterday. This needs to be an arm care day, a really light, day, range of motion, whatever your recovery is. But that's on the parents for young players. I don't expect an 11-year-old to walk in and have that awareness. He's just like walking in. He's happy. He's like, hey, I'm going to go to my lesson. I'm going to do what my coach tells me to do. And so I think that is one of the things I talk about a lot is having realistic expectations. And I feel like baseball and softball on a large scale, parents have such unrealistic expectations or understanding of how hard and what the process really is because so many of them didn't play. And I don't know if that's because there's less access. There was, basketball. All you need is a basketball and a hoop, and you can find it at a park. Soccer ball, all you need is a soccer ball and a ball, or a soccer ball and a field, and you can go play. Baseball, you need a bat, you need balls, you need gloves, you need helmets. Like it's more monetarily exclusive than some of the other sports. And so I think that less and less parents ever played, but now people are making money and they put their kids in it because, oh, look what my neighbors are doing or whatever else, but they truly don't know what goes into being a ball player.
Yeah, I think that's trickle down stuff, right? That happens even in conversations and stuff like that. I love that you brought that up because again, it's they don't know what they don't know, and I think that's pretty common on this show. It's like Shane says the same thing. He's like, and parents don't know what they don't know, and if they're not playing the game, they don't know, so they're not going to watch the game because they never played the game, right? So then the kid's not going to watch the game. And they're wanting these expectations, and here I am over here. I'm screaming and hollering at my kid. Not really, but you need to watch the baseball games, And it's like, well, their parents don't want to. If their parents don't want to, there's no reason for them to turn it on. You know what I mean? And so you have to kind of develop that yourself, maybe break that chain or whatever that is. And I really like the beginning part of that show and kind of the conversations. And it's not exactly the topic that we're going to get ready to talk about because I want to start with just the development process, going back to which I think what we just talked about is part of development because you're developing something, whether it's relationships, things like that, you're developing something. So
I think it's a bit. I think that element is a big part. I think that going in and understanding, okay, am I starting with this 9-year-old who absolutely loves baseball? We're a baseball family, or am I starting with this 9-year-old that, hey man, we just wanted an activity for him to do? Mm-hmm. Like that looks totally different. I always layer it for people that come in and parents. And I tell them, hey, you don't have to give me this answer right now. But if I'm going to be working with your kid, I am a high-level instructor. And for me, until told differently, every player that walks into my facility and our cage, the goal is to get you to college. That's the goal, to make you a college athlete. If that's not the goal after, a month, or you already know that or whatever, then I need to know so that we can set the program right. We can set the expectations right, because that's one of the biggest things that I see is the parents and players not being aligned in what the ultimate goal is.
Mm-hmm. And then you're talking about your return on your investment in that same process, because you're having parents want them to go play for something because the neighbor plays on that team or something goofy, and you're paying these outrageous prices without knowing. And I think you are correct. It's all intertwined, right? The web is, and so I can appreciate that there. And talking about our role as coaches, and it's been a conversation that I brought up about kind of dependency on things, and I need you to think about this in the form of the large scale and not maybe you specifically, or kind of what I do with like the programming side. Do you think that specialized instruction is stunting some of the growth of these athletes, and I'm discussing the 30-minute hour-long lesson with no structure behind it. So there's no go at home and doing your things. And do you think that has a floor or ceiling for growth of athletes?
100%. I think that if you have kids that are in that environment and there's not something outlined to work on at home, and there's not an element of exploration and free play, experimentation, however you want to phrase that, I think that we turn kids into robots, which are less athletic, less creative. They don't move as well because they're doing the same repetitive motions over and over without understanding the whys or how I make adjustments to this. So absolutely, it if there's not an outline and a plan, for me with young players, one of the things that I tell them all the time is go play home run derby. Go see how hard you can swing. Go figure it out, man. Like don't try to get locked into one swing or one way of doing things early. Um, and so yeah, I think that putting too young age, one of the reasons that I don't take players until they're at least 9. Like I have people call me about 5 and 6 year olds, and I'm like, absolutely not. Go play wiffle ball, go out in the yard, play multiple sports. So yes, I do. I think that like I said, and I'm not going to throw any names here, but there is a facility around in this area that is amongst coaches that know what they're doing and that have good programs. It's called the Puppy Mill. They bring people in. Come in, here's your 30 minutes out the door. Next kid in, 30 minutes out the door. Next kid in, 30 minutes out the door. And then those kids, if they stick around very long with that, they end up coming to our facility or to another facility. And there's 2 or 3 good ones around. And the parents are like, oh my God, like this, what is this? Like this, I was paying for this and now we have this. So it absolutely puts those kids behind the 8 ball. But again, it goes back to parents not knowing what they don't know. If you never played and the coach throws some buzzwords out there, oh, they must know what they're talking about. But then there's no expectation, there's no hitting journal, there's no outlines, there's nothing to do between. Yeah, man, it sets them back. The kids turn into robots.
How do you so let's take that, because one of the this is one of my favorite things about working with Brian and YBM is solutions. Okay, so how do we create the solution in this? Sorry, I was trying to get the I rolled over the wire
On the wire.
Yeah, squirrel. So let's build the solution for the parents then. What should we do as instructors programming? Because I mean, obviously you have a much larger following than I have. But I'm in the same boat that you. I feel the same way that you do programming, and how we are long-term investments. It's not just this short-term, I want you in for 30 minutes. I want to be a part of the process through recruiting tips, all of the nutrition tips, like the entire athlete I want to be invested in, right? So again, going back to programming, what would you suggest parents asking when they're looking for instructors and they're going through this process? What's something that we can do to say, maybe one question? What's the best question that you have for a parent when trying to find an instructor?
Man, if I'm a parent and I can kind of speak on this because of my daughter and trying to figure out what she wanted to do. What is the program? Like, ask very direct. What is the program for development? And depending on what age, that is going to vary. If you have younger kids, and when I say young, again, I don't worry about any kid under the age of 9. Like that I think that it, for me personally, there's always an anomaly, but for me personally, I think anybody spending money on private instruction that is skill based, hitting, pitching, whatever, I think that is ultimately probably a waste of money. I think if you want to get your young athlete into a speed and agility program, building a better athlete, some sort of multi-sport, like one of the things that one of our coaches does a great job of, Like when his kids come in for pitching, he literally throws a football and has them running routes to warm up. Like, I mean, and so it gets them moving. Now, obviously, the older kids, they have their own warm up, but the younger kids that are there for a pitching lesson, it's about movement. It's about running. It's about catching. It's all different things. And so the age matters. But number one, what is the program? And that's the overall, question. Secondly, from an instructor standpoint, is what is the goal? Why are you here? Are you here because your son or daughter has asked to be here? They are serious about this. They have these long-term dreams and goals. By the time I was 6 years old, dude, I knew I wanted to be a pro baseball player. Like, but I have 13-year-olds that walk in and they're like, oh, I don't know. I'm just, having fun. So, I mean, there's all sorts of levels to this. So for the parent, the question is, what is the program? For the instructor, the first question is always, what is the goal?
Yeah, I think that's why, you see, because remote coaching's big, right? So there's a large platform there, and it's always you see the video sales letters, right? They go out and it's like, who's this program for and who it's not for. And I think knowing that should help parents. And so parents, if you're looking at somebody, almost every coach has Instagram, right? Every coach has some sort of social media platform. Go check out their social media, right? You can do that in the short term, but when you get that person and you get that in-person relationship, that's when you ask that question, what's the program? They should already almost know that, because you should be expressing that. That's what I think that I get along with guys like you and Shane on that hitting side, is because you have something built. You're willing to talk about your program. It's not some secret thing, right? You guys are expressing that, and we get back to kind of the monetary side of things. And parents are the big support systems here, but are they actually sabotaging some of their athletes? And what I mean by that is, the investment's thousands of dollars every single year. And how much should parents be invested in the development process of this athlete? We've talked about it a little bit earlier, right? With getting to know your coaches, kind of setting the expectations at home, the personal relationships that need to be built. And so, should, in the terms of the baseball, should they be that silent person in the back helping them with the communication skills? And when it comes to the baseball, softball side, how much do you want them invested into the program?
It's a bonfire, man. Think about it like a fire. Parents are the lighter fluid. The player is the wood that you keep piling on. You have to, as a parent, early on, you have to be the biggest cheerleader. You have to be the motivating factor. You have to be the driver. You have to be the one that buys the equipment. But once you've got the fire started, the kid has everything that they need to continue to burn. All they need now is to keep just adding the effort, adding the work, adding the knowledge. That's when it becomes more of the player and coach. Parents are the lighter fluid. The player and coach are the ones that keep throwing the wood on the fire to keep it going. Okay? And that's the easiest way that I can come up with to describe how that goes. I generally, and again, I'm going off of 9 years old. Once you have put in 6 months of something to a kid, they should know. Kind of, I really, really like this and I want to get better, or this is just something I want to do for fun. And at that point, the road changes. You have your league balls, you have your fun, like summer camps, your little fall camps that you can do if you want to go have some fun and be with your buddies, or you have the year-long programs that have, athletic development for this section, skill development for this section, recovery here, preseason prep, what all that looks like. And so that's kind of how I describe it. And then along the way, obviously, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be burnout sometimes, and sometimes after that burnout, the parent needs to be the lighter fluid again. hey, it's been 6 months. How are you feeling about this? You want to get going, you know? And it's dicey. And again, I can talk on this from my personal experience with my kid. She loves her horseback riding. She plays soccer, but she's like, oh, I don't want to do that, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm sorry, youngin. You're going to have to play a team sport. Like, that's a non negotiable for me. Now, how serious you are about that, I don't care. I don't care if it's down at the rec. That doesn't matter. But we're going to be in team sports as a young person because I truly believe in the values that it teaches and all of those things. So, you know, knowing when to ignite the fire a little bit. But once that fire's going, it's that's where the coaching and the player take over, and the parent just sits back and should just, as I say, enjoy the ride.
Yeah. So the follow up to that, then, since you kind of talked about the money side of this, do you think because of the money that's spent in this sport that sometimes parents can put out that fire because of those unrealistic expectations, and like unknowingly?
For sure, I think that when parents, whether they are aware of it consciously or not, I think just as a human, if I'm spending X amount of dollars, I'm expecting something in return for that. I'm expecting to enjoy my house or my new car or, whatever it is. My daughter's college education. Like, I'm expecting something to come out of that is good for me. And, sometimes you'll hear parents, oh, well, we just do it because it's a great experience and we get to travel around. Well, that's fine. If that's why you're playing travel sports is because you like traveling around and being with other families, that's great. But don't get mad at your kid when they go 0 for 4.
Oh, for the
Like,
week.
or for the weekend. Yeah. If your reason for playing travel sports is to travel and have fun with other families, don't gripe about lack of development or bad coaching. Like, that doesn't work.
You could do
So
that.
yeah, they can absolutely knock that fire out, dude. If you're paying and your kid doesn't care and you're not in it for the right reasons, and then all of a sudden you want to, oh, you're not playing good. Yeah, no kidding. The kid's gonna be like, whatever. I don't even want to be here.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought up vacations, because I've heard that a few times. Like, people want to go to different organizations because they allow, they have 3 travel dates, and I'm over here like, I don't need you to travel. I'm not going to dictate where you go play, but however, I'm not forcing you to go 3 tournaments so that I can sell it at tryout time because it's a cute thing to do. If parents want to travel, call your friends up and go travel and save $2,000 and go play rec baseball, or make rec baseball great again, if you will, because I think that's where they miss, is that kid needs to go play recreational sports, period. Just that's it, right? Like, they that's where they belong, and that is 100% okay. The parents could save $2,000, by going and playing at the level that the kid wants to go. And I think it goes just back to the realistic expectations. They whine about how much money they spent and their kids going 0 for 4, but they're the ones that vetted into these coaches. Vetted? I don't even know if that's a word. Invested into these organizations. And it's like, man, you didn't have to do that. You did that for what reason? You were the one responsible. That, I'll be honest with you, going back to some of this stuff, I don't like coaching. I love my 9U group because it's allowing me to have fun. I'm not going into this wanting to do instruction at all at 9U because how much the kid changes, just in general, maturation process. And so for me, it's like 12 and over is where my bread and butter is with the hitting instruction, pitching instruction, because of the conversations I can have. I have sometimes a hard time dumbing down. When I coach in the team setting, I have an absolute blast because it's just about how much fun I can have. Kids trying to self-organize, and I'm like, hey, pull a baseball, let's pull it in the air. I don't care how, what you do. I don't care if the pitch is in the middle or outside. If you're going to pull it, let's pull it in the air, because there's something that you have to do to get there. And that's like kind of just trying to teach them the fun of things and self-organizing. Instead, the parents want me to teach this skill set to their one kid. And I'm like, I can't kind of do that. And so I think about like stuff like, are we overcoaching our athletes? And in the terms of like the instructor. And what I don't mean like how you do your programming. again, it kind of goes back to the instructions that we see most often, which I think there's more coaches out there just trying to collect a check 30 minutes in, like your puppy mill routine, or what you called it earlier. I think there's
Yeah.
more of that, and maybe I'm wrong, but and what I see more of the puppy mill style of just cycling kids in and out, these private instructors. And I think about, are we truly helping these kids out, or are we is it kind of that overcoaching feel again, going back to, are they going to be dependent on us? So when they go 0 for 3 in a game, they don't know how to make the adjustment because they're not built into the long-term journey of what it takes 6-7 days a week.
Well, I think, and man, I try to tread lightly. Normally, I don't tread lightly, but with this topic, I try to tread lightly because I don't know people personally. But what I can say over the years is there have been so many people that have come to me for one lesson and been like, we just got more out of that lesson in an hour than we've gotten out of 2 years with who we're with. And that upsets me on some level for the coach, but they just may not know. It may be somebody that isn't on social media that just is regurgitating what they heard when they played high school in 1970, or, whatever it is. But I think, to your point, there is a whole lot of doing it for the money and preying. I view it as preying on uneducated parents that just, they don't know any better. And if I feel for the parents, because in some cases they've said that. They said, I just don't know. This is the person in town that everybody goes to. And, until you go in and you see a high level session where it's not just stand up here, hit on a tee, oh, that's a good swing because you hit a line drive, that kind of deal. It's, what is the adjustment process? What is the mindset stepping into the box? How are you feeling that day? Are you seeing it well? Are you not seeing it well? Is it a pitcher that, if I got some lefty pitcher up there on the mound, rolling it in there at 70 miles an hour, looking for soft contact, don't go up there swinging out of your shoes. Understand that, hey, today is going to be a backside single and double day because I can't get too big with my swing. Those types of things that just aren't ever talked about in other settings. And so it is what it is, man. Like, I don't have all the answers, but I do think that there's a lot of really bad instruction that parents get sucked into, and ultimately the kid pays the price because they're way behind the eight ball. And on top of that, I see a lot of kids that are placed on teams at a level that they have no business being on so that the organization can cash a check. I've got a 10U kid right now, bless his heart. I love him to death. He works hard. He truly loves the game, but he's on a 10U majors team and has absolutely no business on that level right now. And I've tried to gently talk to the parents about it, and I'm being serious, like gently talk to the parents and be like, the struggles that y'all are mentioning repeatedly are skill set problems. He's not big enough. He's not strong enough. He's not fast enough to be on a majors team. Yes, there are some good things going on with this kid, but he's a double A level kid right now. And so that irritates me. That pisses me off when organizations do that. When organizations do that to kids and families. Oh, well, my kid's a 10U major player. Well, then he really goes to a 11U major tryout next year with a different organization and gets his heart ripped out because they tell you you're not even close because this other organization lied to you for a year so they could get your money.
I think that's a problem everywhere, because obviously you're in Texas, we're in Missouri. So, and we have those similar things happening here. And, I don't know what it's for. I don't know, like, what the, I would rather be the one of the top players on a double A team, getting my everyday reps, getting that Sunday starts, than being the kid that's a number 11 or 12 on a 10U major roster or something like that. I think in the theory of even keeping those kids in the program, you should put them in the best position possible to be successful, because that's how you're going to build and maintain the confidence. And that it doesn't mean that that kid one day can't be an elite level kid, or he's even going to, that kid may grow up and be a professional baseball player. And those other kids that are the top player at 10U may not have it. They may go to a different sport, because when you're an elite athlete, you're typically elite in everything you do. The way you jump, the way
Yeah.
you throw, the way you run. So you could play almost anything and be high level. So, for me, what if that kid becomes a 5-star recruit for, throwing a football?
Yeah.
He's gonna have an opportunity to make a lot of money in an NIL deal playing football than he is going to be as a baseball player, even though he's one of the top players in the state. There's 30 other kids in the country that are that same level that are going to somewhere. So is LSU going to take him, or a 24-year-old kid wanting to transfer into a senior? So, for me, I think about that, like to end with this development thing and kind of the responsibilities of this. I think your job is, I think when you say tread lightly, I get it. When you're gentle on it, because you can't tell parents what to do. You can't tell them how to parent. You can't tell them how to manage their athlete. But when they are going 0 for something on the weekend and they call you up like, man, my kid can't buy a hit. 0 for 16 this weekend. Everything is getting past them. There's nothing that you're going to be able to do to help the kid out. Like, he just doesn't have it. It's not between the ears. It's the maybe it's focus or something that he's missing that keeps him here versus being that elite level kid. We have got to be okay as parents to just take a step back and say, what's the best solution for my kid? Which at the end of the day leads me kind of to the end of this topic, which is, when we get to the development process, and let's say this 10U kid is not major, he's a 10U, great 10U AA. Maybe he's a really good AAA player, because I think there's even a gap between AAA and major. I don't think it should be the same. When I think major, I'm thinking somebody that's very mature and can hit baseballs a long way, throw them hard, whatever. So let's say this 10U kid goes through the process, right? And as a sophomore, he makes his high school varsity team in a 6A school, 5A, 6A for us. We have really good programs. Who starts to get that credit? Is it us, the instructor? Is it the player? Is it the parent? Is it the coaches? Is it everybody? Like, who is that primary person that's going to get that credit and should take that? Or is even credit even the word we should be using and saying hats off to this young person for working that hard?
Yeah, you always ask, I say always, you ask a lot of questions that have like this broad field of answers. Because for me, when that question is posed, it all comes back to, what was the environment? Was this a kid that was very dedicated and he put in the hard work with minimal guidelines? Was this a kid whose parents knew that they had something here, but they really had to push to keep him motivated? You get some great athlete that really doesn't have to practice that much. And there are. At the high school level, there are kids that are just that good and they don't have to do much. And it's the parents' job just to kind of keep them in lane, right? Like, we're not going to get too far out of this lane. We understand you're a good athlete. The coaches understand you're a good athlete. We're just going to keep you on the straight and narrow. Is it the kid who didn't have a good home life, but he or she happened to have a really good mentor instructor? I've had a couple of kids since I started doing like individual training, where they just lived with mom. Dad was not in the picture. Or they just lived with dad. Mom wasn't really in the picture. And so I took over sort of that mentor parenting role to guide them. And so I think that it's very different. Ultimately, I like to always give the credit to the athlete. I am very much, I give the information. What you do with that information is totally up to you. That's kind of how I view it, big picture. But I think that there are different scenarios where a little more could go to the parent. A little more could go, this athlete did this on their own. I told them when they were 10, hey, this is what you need to do. And they rock and rolled. They did it. you know. Um, Sometimes it has to be the instructor. That's why you have players that stand up in, high school signing ceremonies and say, I love Coach Cathcart, or I love Coach Mitch, or I love, whoever it was for always being there for me, you know. But ultimately, it has to be the player, and then circumstance can dictate something else. If I can backtrack really quick, I don't know how much time we have. I Not that I'm all knowing, obviously, but I truly believe that the way that I ran our travel team programs really set our kids up and our parents up for understanding and success as they moved into high school. Starting at 12U, we had AA, AAA majors, and I ran that like a sophomore JV varsity. Parents and players were told at the beginning of the year, and we did years. We didn't have tryouts in the fall and in the spring and all this flip flop. You had to commit for a year. Over that year, based on performance and not just based on one tournament, based on however long, 3 tournaments or whatever, you could move up and down. You could start on the majors team, but if you went 0 for 20 and you had an ERA of 4, you got moved down, just like you would if you were in the big leagues and you got moved to AAA or you got moved to AA. If you were hitting 700 in AA for 3 tournaments, you got moved up to AAA. And having that flow and understanding. Now, you have to have parents that are understanding, and they have to check their egos at the door. Like, that was one of the things. Like, we had to vet parents for this model. But when you get it right, parents understand the work ethic. Kids understand the ebb and flow. They understand. We all practiced together. It wasn't like you had these different teams going on. And so every parent got to see every kid all the time. And it was told to me that, hey, we really appreciated this because when we got to the high school level, it made it seamless on the transition. And I think from a program standpoint, the sooner that you can make those travel programs true programs in development instead of being their own individual, entities, basically, in the long run, you build a better program, you develop the kids better, you build better unity, and it's just better for everyone as they do get into their high school years.
Man, it's funny that you bring that up because we're migrating to that as far as our group goes. So I'm getting out of team sports because it's frustrating to me. It's hard to handle, and especially with some of the larger organizations we have here that don't do cuts and things like that. And what our goal is we will actually have a large organization using our facility as kind of a second location based on where they're at and where our location is at. And one of the big things that we're doing is trying to create a true developing system, as you just mentioned. So I'm glad that you actually went back a little bit and talked about that, because I do think that's a big deal. I think being able to practice with a full team of 18, all the way up to 27 kids or whatever it may be, the things that you can do at a practice to make it way more effective and efficient, you are truly then developing athletes. Because when you have 11 kids on a team and 2 are sick or 1 kid got hurt, how do you run an efficient practice? How do you actually execute bunt coverages? And you're getting your outfielders to have to run the bases, and everybody's like, well, my outfielders are learning. No, they're not. They're tired. They're probably exhausted. They don't want to do it in the first place. But can you imagine if you scrimmage just a bunt game? You don't have to. It's just, to me, I think that system as a whole, what you brought up again, going back to the development process, this is where us as coaches can really truly help young people out, is putting them again in the best opportunity to learn. You cannot learn with 10, 9, 8 kids at practice. I've seen 7, 8 kids at a practice. I mean, I have a team come in that works with me for 90 minutes. Last week I had 3 kids. They have 7 pitchers on that team. Where was the other primary pitchers? Where are the other 4? And then what happens is the parent's going to go into the season and be uncomfortable because their kid's not ready. Well, they're going to blame me. That's why I brought up the question, kind of who's responsible, because then who's to blame if something doesn't happen? And it's like, hey, I have the program. I'm not going to give this to you and just work this hard for you if you're not going to invest back into me. I need this to be a mutual thing. I just don't want to hand out information if you're not invested and you don't want to do it at home. So I love that you brought that we're going to call it a pod system. Basically, we're going to have, so many kids at a level. But if I had I'm going to use an even number, 48 kids, I'm not having 4 teams of 12. I have 48 kids. If I'm going to play in a major event, I'm telling my families I'm going to take the 12 strongest kids out of 48 players, and we are going to go run a major event. If I'm not at that level, I'm going to run a AA or AAA event or whatever the case may be. And then I'm going to put those kids in position to be successful. Now, we might dictate later on that we have these 8 kids that are really strong and need to be the everyday guys on that particular roster, coached by that particular group. Then we'll backfill with the next 3 guys. And if those 3 guys can't handle it, I'm bringing up the next 3 guys or whatever the case may be to work through my season. I think what happens, like you said, is you start building culture because everybody understands right off the bat at tryouts. They should know this, right? That it has to be known at tryouts. Then you have to continue to develop that parent and understanding what your goals are and what the long-term journey is. And then once they go through it, they're not going to want to leave because their kid had success and you put them in a place to have success. And then that's why I brought up the last question was who's responsible for it, because the development, because who's responsible for it if it's not. 90% of the time it's the coaching staff that gets blamed, and the other 8% maybe the instructor, and then the other 1% is one on the player, one on the parent. And I think that again it goes back to the broad question is everybody has their hands in it. If the organization is not setting the coach up to have success, what are we doing? We're not gonna be developing athletes. So, Josh, I appreciate it. I'll let you get on with your day here today. This has been a blast. So we're going to be done with our show. So I won't have you on again for a while. I know that we talked about September being a month for us maybe to get together and bring you back in here to St. Louis. So we'll continue to talk about that because our last camp was pretty fun. It was new for you. So you talked about being a chameleon earlier on the show. You haven't ran a camp like that before. And then you crushed it and the kids loved it and already want you to come back here to St. Louis area. So it is we're going to be tuning off because high school baseball starts and I get to be a part of YBM going out and doing baseball games. I get to we broadcast games here
sweet.
on YouTube. Yep. And then I get to do the color. The play-by-play is not my thing. I get to tell people they're terrible at the sport or something and how they shouldn't have done that in their cutoffs, and parents then message us on YouTube and tell us how bad of a human I am for picking on a 18-year-old kid that doesn't know how to play baseball. But that's my job as color, right?
That is your job.
Call me Jimmy Ballgame. Well, if you come up to St. Louis in the next couple of months, you're in the area, maybe we'll get you on.
That's why I picked my phone up. I was just looking. I have clinics going until April 11th, but the weekend of April 17th or April 24th, I am open. So if you have something going on those Friday nights or something, we can talk about it. That would be great, man. Just to even sit in the booth and watch a game with you.
Well, the booth happens to be metal chairs and a canopy that says Youth Baseball Midwest on it to keep the sun off me. So because I'm a ginger and I get burnt and wear sunscreen. But Friday, so I'll ask because you said April, the weekend of April 17th, April 21st. Wow, 4th. Brian, he has some open dates. Maybe if we got Friday Night Lights or
if y'all got Friday on the 17th or the 24th, check it out.
April 24th. All right, Josh, I'm going to see if that can somehow work out. Anyways, this is how exciting it is. This is a relationship that was built over the internet that has created a 2-3 year process of just communicating back and forth, being on each other's socials, supporting each other, sometimes even going against each other on some comments because it's way easier to be a keyboard warrior than to tell you that you're something in your face. I sometimes like to pick on you and you're sarcastic and then I hit you with some sarcasm and then you'll type back and I was like, man, I was just playing. He was like, man, because you posted something the other day that was like one of your long posts, and I was like, hey man, why so many words, characters in your post?
It's like, it's just my thoughts, bro.
Because I know you like to hammer people when they give you a 10-minute read on your comments. But anyways, make sure you go follow Josh. Hitting Done Right. He's a fantastic follow. He's got humor in it. It's sometimes it's dry humor, but to me, I think if you pay attention to what he's doing, you'll see that it's aligned across the folks that we have on this show, and it's about building athletes and finding solutions to make these young people better. Not trying to make your money. You don't be in this business for 20 plus years, 25 plus years without integrity and passion. So, Josh, I appreciate you again. Hitting Done Right. It's on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. YouTube is where I found you. I think it was COVID, so this dates back 6 years ago. Looking up PVC drills. And they may not be on your everydays now, but I would strongly suggest going back and looking at his material early on, because you can find some med ball drills and PVC drills for things that you can do at home. And that was the importance of what I was searching at the time when I found you at COVID, which is trying to find fun at home drills that cost you very little money to become a better player. So, Josh, any final words?
I was going to just kind of piggyback off that. My YouTube channel is designed for the young player and parent and young coach. The drills I make as simple as possible. There's not a bunch of biomechanic jargon thrown out. Most of it, if you really needed to, you could do without a ball. And so that was kind of the thought process behind the YouTube channel. So if you have young players that are just getting started, if you're wanting just the basic overall mechanics that are kind of absolutes that you make your own, the YouTube library, it's got 83,000 subscribers and over 1,000 videos at this point. So yeah, man, y'all go check that out. I would love to build that platform because that's where the more long form and the more simplistic detail is.
Perfect, man. And what I got out of today's show, man, there was a lot, but be creative in what you're doing. And that's kind of how we ended. We talked about the young players playing wiffle ball, maybe getting into some speed and agility stuff, and ultimately learning how to self-organize and have fun. And so for me, that's kind of what I got out of this, was have fun with your journey and make it as fun as possible and not so taxing. So, Josh, I appreciate you, man. Thanks. Yep, realistic, 100% there. I appreciate you hopping on the show a couple times this year, doing that camp with us. We'll obviously stay in touch, and if we can make it work, man, I hope to see you on April 24th.
Much love, dude. I appreciate it always.
Yep. Thank you, Josh. Have a good rest of your day, buddy.
All right, man. Y'all be good.
Peace.